The grand ballroom of the San Francisco Tech Summit fell silent. 3,000 people held their breath as the microphone trembled in the hands of a teenage boy wearing a wrinkled dress shirt that was clearly too big for his frame. Marcus Thompson, 17 and homeless, had waited outside since 4 a.m., sneaking past security to stand before the world's richest man. But he didn't ask about Tesla's stock price or SpaceX's latest launch. Instead, his voice barely a whisper, he asked the one question that would change both their lives forever. What would you tell someone who has absolutely nothing but refuses to give up? Elon Musk's expression shifted. For the first time that day, his carefully maintained public persona cracked, revealing something raw and genuine beneath. What happened next would not only transform Marcus's life, but would remind the world why some questions are worth far more than their answers. What secret advice could change a homeless teen's life forever? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 months earlier, Marcus Thompson sat in his 2008 Honda Civic, parked in the far corner of Palo Alto High School's student lot. The pre-dawn fog wrapped around his car like a protective blanket, hiding him from the occasional early morning jogger. He'd gotten good at this routine, waking up at 4:30 a.m., using the 24-hour gym's shower with the monthly membership he'd scraped together from his weekend coding jobs, and arriving at school before anyone could notice he'd spent another night in his car. The laptop balanced on his knees cast a blue glow across his face as he reviewed his latest project, a machine learning algorithm he'd been developing for the past 6 months. The screen's reflection in his glasses couldn't hide the dark circles under his eyes, but there was an intensity in his gaze that spoke of determination rather than exhaustion. Just one more bug to fix, he muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard. The code was his ticket, not just to the upcoming Silicon Valley Tech Summit, but to something bigger, something that could change everything. His phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Ms. Rivera, Computer Lab, 6:00 a.m. Marcus smiled, saving his work and packing up his laptop. If there was one person who understood his situation without pitying him, it was his computer science teacher. The school's hallways were empty and dark as Marcus made his way to the computer lab. Only the security guard, Mr. Wilson, was around, offering a knowing nod as Marcus passed. Early bird gets the worm, eh, Thompson? Yes, sir. Always does. Inside the computer lab, Ms. Rivera was already setting up for the day, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her casual attire, a stark contrast to the formal Silicon Valley tech wear she'd worn during her years as a software engineer at Google. Morning, Marcus, how's our project coming along? She didn't look up from her computer, but her voice carried the warmth of genuine interest. Almost there. The neural network's processing speed improved by 40% after implementing those changes you suggested. Marcus pulled up a chair, opening his laptop. But I'm still getting memory leaks when processing larger data sets. Ms. Rivera wheeled her chair over, scanning his code. Show me where you're allocating the resources for the training sets. For the next hour, they worked in comfortable silence, occasionally broken by technical discussions. This had become their routine over the past year, ever since Ms. Rivera had discovered Marcus's unusual living situation. She'd never reported him to social services, understanding his fear of being thrust back into the foster system he'd fled from. Instead, she'd become his mentor, offering guidance, technical expertise, and most importantly, a safe space to work on his projects before school started. The Tech Summit's in 3 months, she said finally, leaning back in her chair. Have you figured out how you're going to get in? Marcus's fingers paused over the keyboard. I've been monitoring their ticket release patterns. They always have a last-minute batch for students, but they're nearly impossible to get. He pulled up a browser window, showing a complex script he'd written. So I created this bot that you're definitely not going to use to automatically purchase tickets, Ms. Rivera interrupted, raising an eyebrow. Because that would be against their terms of service. Marcus grinned. Of course not. It's purely theoretical research. Ms. Rivera shook her head, but there was pride in her expression. You know, most kids your age are using their coding skills to cheat at video games or hack their grades. Most kids my age have homes to go to, Marcus replied, his voice matter-of-fact, rather than bitter. I don't have that luxury. What I do have is this. He gestured to his laptop. And I'm going to make it count. The morning light was starting to filter through the lab's windows, signaling the approaching start of the school day. Marcus began packing up his equipment, but Ms. Rivera stopped him with a gentle hand on his shoulder. I have something for you. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a small package. It's not much, but you'll need it if you're serious about the summit. Inside the package was a crisp white dress shirt and a navy blue tie. They were my brother's, she explained. He's about your size, and he doesn't need them anymore since he switched to working remotely. Marcus ran his fingers over the fabric, throat tight with emotion. Ms. Rivera, I can't. You can and you will, she said firmly. Consider it an investment in your future. Besides, you can't meet Elon Musk wearing that PayPal hackathon t-shirt you've been living in. The mention of Musk made Marcus's heart rate spike. The tech billionaire was rumored to be the keynote speaker at the summit, though nothing had been officially announced. Meeting him had been Marcus's dream, ever since he'd read about Musk's own journey from coding video games as a kid to revolutionizing multiple industries. Thank you, Marcus managed, carefully folding the shirt and tie into his backpack. For everything. Just promise me one thing, Ms. Rivera said, her expression serious. When you make it, and you will make it, remember there are other kids out there like you. Brilliant minds trapped by circumstances. Be the person you needed when you were younger. The first students were starting to trickle into the building as Marcus made his way to his locker. Among them was Sarah Martinez, one of the few people at school who knew his secret. She fell into step beside him, her designer backpack a sharp contrast to his worn one. You look like you haven't slept, she observed, handing him a protein bar from her seemingly endless supply of snacks. Again. Sleep is for people who aren't trying to revolutionize artificial intelligence. Marcus replied, gratefully accepting the food. His last proper meal had been yesterday's school lunch. Sarah rolled her eyes. You sound like my dad when he's in startup mode. Speaking of which, she lowered her voice. You can crash at our guest house tonight if you need to. Mom and Dad are in Singapore for some tech conference. Marcus shook his head. Thanks, but I'm good. The less people who know about my situation, the better. You mean the less people who could help you? Sarah challenged. You know, normal friends let their friends help them when they're in trouble. Normal friends don't have to worry about social services splitting them up from their only remaining family, Marcus countered, thinking of his younger sister Emma, safely hidden away at their aunt's house in Oregon. The arrangement wasn't perfect. Their aunt's small apartment couldn't accommodate both siblings, and Marcus had insisted Emma take the spot, but it kept her in school and out of the system. Sarah's expression softened. How is Emma? Good. She made honor roll again. Pride crept into Marcus's voice. She's talking about applying to Stanford's summer program for high school students. Like brother, like sister, Sarah smiled. Speaking of programs, did you figure out how you're getting into the tech summit? Marcus patted his laptop bag. Let's just say I'm working on it. The morning passed in a blur of classes. Advanced placement computer science, where Marcus could have taught the course himself. Physics, where he spent most of his time sketching. Improvements to his algorithm. And English literature, where he struggled to stay awake through a discussion of The Great Gatsby. During lunch, he sat with Sarah and her tech-obsessed friends, half listening to their chatter about the latest Silicon Valley gossip, while he worked on his laptop. The cafeteria's free Wi-Fi wasn't great, but it was better than burning through his limited mobile data. Is it true? Trevor, one of Sarah's friends, leaned across the table. About Musk speaking at the summit? Marcus kept his eyes on his screen. Nothing's confirmed. But you're trying to get in anyway, Sarah said. With that bot you definitely aren't building because that would be against the rules. Trevor's eyes widened. You're writing a bot to snag tickets? Dude, that's genius. Can you get me one too? It's not for tickets, Marcus lied smoothly. It's for my independent study project, pattern recognition in online purchasing behaviors. The lie came easily, like all the others he'd learned to tell. Lies about where he lived, why he was always early to school, why he never invited friends over. Lies that kept his world from falling apart. After school, while other students headed home or to extracurricular activities, Marcus drove to the local library. He'd discovered that if he parked in just the right spot, he could pick up their Wi-Fi signal from his car. It wasn't ideal, but it let him work on his projects without burning gas by keeping the car running. As he settled in for another long evening of coding, his phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Got an A on my CS project. Your help with the debugging? Totally saved me. Miss you, big bro." Marcus smiled, typing back a quick response. "Never doubted you for a second, sis. Keep crushing it." He looked at the time. 4 hours until the library closed, then another night of trying to sleep in his reclined car seat, dreaming of the moment when all of this would pay off. The tech summit was his chance, maybe his only chance, to change everything. Opening his laptop, he pulled up the summit's registration page and his bot's code side by side. "All right, Elon," he muttered, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Let's see if I can get your attention." The library's parking lot slowly emptied as evening approached. Marcus's stomach growled, reminding him of the protein bar from Sarah, his only food since lunch. He reached into his glove compartment, pulling out his carefully maintained budget notebook. After calculating his remaining funds, he allowed himself $5 for dinner at the nearby McDonald's. As he worked through his dollar menu meal in the car, his phone lit up with another notification. This time, it was an email from the Tech Summit's organizing committee. "Dear applicant, thank you for your interest in our student innovation competition. We regret to inform you that your project submission, Neural Network-Based Resource Optimization for Sustainable Energy Distribution, has not been selected as a finalist." Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd spent 3 months perfecting that submission, hoping it would earn him a legitimate way into the summit. Plan B it was, then. He pulled up his bot's code again, making final adjustments. The last batch of student tickets would be released at midnight, and he'd discovered a vulnerability in their queue system. It wasn't strictly legal, but neither was letting a 17-year-old live in his car. "Marcus, is that you?" The voice made him jump. James Wilson, the school security guard, was standing beside his car, concern etched on his weathered face. Marcus quickly closed his laptop. "Mr. Wilson, I was just working on some homework." The older man's expression softened. "In a McDonald's parking lot at 8 p.m.? There was a long pause. Mr. Wilson had been watching out for Marcus since the beginning, though they'd never explicitly discussed his situation. "Listen, son," Mr. Wilson said finally. "I know it's none of my business, but there's a storm coming tonight. Weather service says it's going to be a bad one." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. "The gym's storage room has that old couch the basketball team used to use. It's not much, but it's dry and warm." Marcus stared at the key, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "I can't." "You can and you will," Mr. Wilson interrupted. "Just be out by 5 a.m. when the morning crew comes in. And Marcus?" He waited until the boy met his eyes. "You're not alone in this fight, son." After Mr. Wilson left, Marcus sat in his car for a long time, the key heavy in his hand. The first drops of rain began to hit his windshield as thunder rumbled in the distance. His phone buzzed again, a text from Sarah. "Dad just mentioned Musk is definitely speaking at the summit. Not officially announced yet, but confirmed. Thought you'd want to know." Marcus's heart raced. This was it. His one chance to meet the man whose books and videos had kept him going through the darkest nights, whose story of transformation from a coding kid in South Africa to a global innovator had given him hope. He looked at his laptop, then at the gym key. He had 4 hours until the ticket release. The storage room would be a better place to work than his car in a storm. Inside the gym, the storage room was small but clean. The old couch wasn't comfortable by any means, but it beat his car seat. Marcus set up his workstation, connecting to the school's Wi-Fi using the password Ms. Rivera had given him for emergencies. As he worked on final adjustments to his code, his mind wandered to the question he'd been crafting for months. If he got into the summit, if he managed to get called on during the Q&A, what would he ask Elon Musk? Not about Tesla's stock price or SpaceX's latest launch. Those questions would be asked by others. No, he needed something different. Something that would make the billionaire see him not as just another fan, but as someone who understood what it meant to build something from nothing. Lightning flashed outside as Marcus typed, illuminating the small room. On his screen, lines of code came together like pieces of a puzzle. The bot was ready. In 3 hours, it would either fail spectacularly or change his life forever. He pulled out the dress shirt Ms. Rivera had given him, hanging it carefully on a nearby equipment rack to prevent wrinkles. Next to it, he placed the tie, a splash, of professional blue against the industrial gray of the storage room. Opening his worn copy of Musk's biography, Marcus reread the passages he'd highlighted months ago. When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. The storm raged outside, but inside the small storage room a different kind of energy was building. In just a few hours, Marcus would either be one step closer to his dream or back at square one. But as he'd learned in the past 2 years, sometimes, the biggest risks led to the most important changes. He opened his coding terminal and began the final debugging sequence. The clock struck 9 p.m. 3 hours until the ticket release. 3 hours until everything could change. The morning of the tech summit arrived with San Francisco's characteristic fog rolling through the streets. Marcus stood outside the Moscone Center at 4:30 a.m., his borrowed dress shirt crisp despite having been carefully stored in his car for the past 3 months. He wasn't alone. A handful of eager attendees had already formed a line, most of them clutching coffee cups and discussing the day's agenda in hushed, excited tones. His bot had worked perfectly, securing him a student ticket in the first milliseconds of the release. The $299 price tag had eaten most of his savings from freelance coding jobs, but it was worth it. He'd been first in line since 3:45 a.m., determined not to leave anything to chance. "Quite early for someone your age," remarked an elderly man who had claimed the spot behind him. The man's badge identified him as Dr. Robert Chen, Chief of AI Research at a prominent tech company. "Most teenagers I know can barely make it to school by 8. Marcus smiled politely. "Most opportunities are missed by people who are a little too late rather than a little too early." Dr. Chen's eyebrows rose. "That's a mature perspective. Are you here for the student program?" "Yes, sir. And the keynote, of course." "Ah, Musk. Everyone's waiting for that." Dr. Chen studied Marcus more carefully. "What's your particular interest in AI? I noticed your laptop sticker. TensorFlow, right?" Marcus's eyes lit up. For the next hour, they discussed neural networks, machine learning algorithms, and the future of AI. Dr. Chen seemed increasingly impressed by Marcus's knowledge, particularly his innovative approaches to resource optimization. "You know," Dr. Chen said finally, "we're always looking for fresh perspectives in our internship program. Why don't you—" He was interrupted by movement at the entrance. Security staff had begun setting up metal detectors and check-in stations. The crowd behind them had grown considerably, the line now stretching around the block. Marcus's heart raced as he watched the preparations. Somewhere in that building, Elon Musk would soon arrive for his keynote address. The speech wasn't until 2 p.m., but Marcus had memorized the summit schedule. He knew Musk would likely arrive early for sound checks and private meetings. The security team began processing attendees at 7 a.m. sharp. Marcus presented his student ID and ticket, holding his breath as the guard scrutinized them. Despite the Yao ticket being legitimately purchased, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone would discover how he'd obtained it. "Welcome to the summit," the guard said finally, handing him his badge. Marcus released the breath he'd been holding and stepped into the vast convention center. The main hall was already buzzing with activity. Vendors set up elaborate displays showcasing the latest tech innovations. Marcus walked past holographic displays, autonomous robots, and VR demonstrations that would normally have fascinated him. Today he had a different mission. He found the main auditorium where the keynote would take place and studied the layout. The Q&A session would use microphones stationed in the aisles. He needed to position himself perfectly, close enough to reach a microphone quickly, but not so close that security would pay extra attention to him. Marcus Thompson. He turned to find Sarah Martinez approaching, looking professional in a blazer and skirt. Her father was one of the summit's major sponsors, guaranteeing her access to the VIP sections. "I can't believe you actually made it." She hugged him quickly. "When did you get here?" "Early," he said vaguely. "How's the VIP section looking?" Sarah glanced around before lowering her voice. "He's already here. Dad saw him in the private lounge about 20 minutes ago. They're doing technical runs for the keynote now." Marcus's pulse quickened. "Any chance of getting close?" "Security's tight, but..." Sarah bit her lip, thinking. "The VIP bathroom is right next to the lounge. I might be able to get you in that far with my pass. After that, you're on your own." It was a risk. Getting caught trying to access restricted areas could get him thrown out before the keynote even began. But something Ms. Rivera had told him echoed in his mind. Sometimes the biggest opportunities require the biggest risks. "Let's do it," he decided. Sarah led him through a series of increasingly exclusive areas, flashing her VIP badge at various checkpoints. Finally, they reached a quiet hallway with plush carpeting and enhanced security presence. "Bathrooms through." "There," Sarah whispered. "The lounge is next door. Good luck, and please don't get arrested. My dad would kill me." Marcus slipped into the bathroom, his mind racing. He could hear muffled voices from the adjacent room. One of them sounded familiar from countless YouTube videos and interviews he'd watched. He was washing his hands, trying to calm his nerves, when the bathroom door opened. Marcus looked up into the mirror and froze. Standing behind him was Elon Musk himself, looking slightly tired but focused. Their eyes met in the mirror's reflection. For a moment, neither spoke. Marcus's carefully prepared speech evaporated from his mind. All the practiced questions, the intelligent observations he'd planned to share, gone. Musk nodded politely and moved to the sink next to him. Marcus knew he should say something, but his throat had gone dry. This was his chance, possibly his only chance, and he was blowing it. "Sir," he managed finally, his voice barely above a whisper. A security guard burst into the bathroom. "Mr. Musk, we need you for the final sound check." "Just a moment," Musk replied, drying his hands. He gave Marcus another quick nod before following the guard out. Marcus gripped the sink, his knuckles white. He'd had his shot and choked. The carefully planned question, the months of preparation, the risk of using the bot to get tickets, all for nothing. When he emerged from the bathroom, Sarah was waiting anxiously. "Well, did anything happen?" "I saw him go in there." "I froze," Marcus admitted. "Completely froze." Sarah squeezed his arm sympathetically. "You'll have another chance during the Q&A. Come on, I know a perfect spot where you'll definitely get called on." They made their way back to the main auditorium, which was now filling up rapidly. Sarah led him to a seat near one of the aisle, microphones close enough to reach it quickly but not so close as to be obvious. The hours until the keynote crawled by. Marcus attended other sessions, but his mind kept returning to the missed opportunity in the bathroom. He reviewed his question repeatedly, determined not to freeze again if he got another chance. Finally, at 1:45 p.m., the main auditorium began filling for the keynote. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Marcus watched as tech industry, leaders, venture capitalists, and innovation pioneers filed into the reserved front rows. At precisely 2 p.m., the lights dimmed. The crowd fell silent as Elon Musk walked onto the stage, his presence commanding immediate attention. For the next hour, he discussed Tesla's latest innovations, SpaceX's progress toward Mars colonization, and his vision for sustainable energy. Marcus barely breathed throughout the speech, absorbing every word, but his focus was on what would come next, the 15-minute Q&A session that would determine whether his months of preparation had been worth it. "We'll now open the floor for questions," the moderator announced. "Please keep them brief and relevant." Hands shot up throughout the auditorium. Marcus was already moving toward the microphone, his heart pounding so hard he could barely hear the first few questions being asked. He was third in line at his microphone. The first person asked about Tesla's stock split. The second wanted details about the next Falcon Heavy launch. Standard questions that received standard answers. Marcus stepped up to the microphone, aware of 3,000 pairs of eyes, potentially, turning toward him. He saw Sarah giving him a thumbs up from her VIP seat. Dr. Chen, who had been so kind that morning, was watching with interest from nearby. "We have time for one final question," the moderator announced. Young man at microphone 3. This was it, the moment everything had led to. Marcus took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone, his voice steadier than he expected. "Mr. Musk, my name is Marcus Thompson. I'm 17, and for the past 2 years I've been living in my car while finishing high school, working on AI projects, and trying to build a future for myself and my sister." The auditorium fell completely silent. Even the usual tapping of laptops and phones had ceased. Marcus could feel Musk's full attention on him now, the billionaire's expression shifting from polite interest to genuine engagement. "I'm not asking for help or handouts," Marcus continued. "What I want to know is, what would you tell someone who has absolutely nothing but refuses to give up?" The silence deepened. Marcus could feel the weight of thousands of eyes on him, but he kept his gaze locked with Musk's. In that moment, all the fear and uncertainty of the past 2 years, all the cold nights in his car, all the missed meals, all the lies and hiding, seemed to crystallize into this single question. Elon Musk stood silent for a moment, his usual, rapid-fire response style replaced by thoughtful consideration. He stepped away from the podium, moving closer to the edge of the stage. "That's quite a question," he said finally, his South African accent more pronounced than usual. "And I suspect there's quite a story behind it. First, let me say that your presence here, asking this question, already shows something remarkable." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "When I came to North America, I did odd jobs, cleaning boiler rooms, working at a lumber mill. Not quite the same as living in a car while coding AI, but I understand something about starting with nothing." The audience remained absolutely still, the usual rustling of papers and clicking of laptops completely absent. "Here's what I would tell you," Musk continued, his eyes fixed on Marcus. "Most people think success is about having brilliant ideas or making clever innovations, but that's not it. The real key is your capacity for pain tolerance." He let that sink in before continuing. "How much pain are you willing to endure to achieve your goals? Most people quit when it gets hard. They quit when they're uncomfortable. But you, living in your car, still pursuing your education, working on advanced AI projects, you're already demonstrating an extraordinary pain tolerance." Marcus felt his throat tighten as Musk's words hit home. Every night spent reclined in his car seat, every morning sneaking into the gym to shower, every lie told to keep his situation hidden, it all suddenly felt validated. "But here's the part most people don't talk about," Musk added, his voice taking on an intensity that commanded attention. "That pain tolerance, that resilience you're building, it's not just about survival, it's your superpower. When others quit because something is too hard, you'll keep going because you've already endured harder things." He stepped even closer to the edge of the stage. "You mentioned AI projects. What specifically are you working on?" Marcus's heart raced. This wasn't just a response to his question. Musk was actually engaging with him. "I'm developing a neural network for optimizing resource distribution in renewable energy systems," he managed to say, "trying to solve the intermittency problem in solar and wind power storage." Musk's eyebrows rose. "Interesting approach. Have you considered the implications for grid-scale battery systems?" "Yes, sir, that's actually what inspired the project. I've been studying Tesla's grid storage solutions and trying to develop algorithms that could improve their efficiency by up to 40%. The moderator stepped forward, clearly intending to end the session, but Musk waved him off. "See me after the keynote," he said to Marcus. "Bring your laptop." The audience burst into murmurs. Sarah, from her VIP seat, looked like she might explode with excitement. Dr. Chen was already typing furiously on his phone. "But to finish answering your question," Musk continued, addressing not just Marcus now, but the entire audience. The world is full of people who will tell you what's impossible. They'll say you can't succeed without the right connections, the right education, the right background. They're all wrong. The only thing that matters is your willingness to persist when others would quit. He paused, then added with a slight smile, and maybe a bit of coding skill doesn't hurt either. The audience laughed, breaking the tension. But Musk wasn't finished. One last thing, he said, his expression serious again. That sister you mentioned? Hold on to that relationship. Family who believe in you, who support your dreams even when they seem impossible. They're more valuable than any venture capital funding. The moderator finally stepped in, thanking Musk and beginning the closing remarks. But Marcus barely heard them. His mind was spinning with what had just happened and what was about to happen next. As the audience began to disperse, Sarah appeared at his side, practically bouncing with excitement. "Oh my God, Marcus, do you realize what just happened?" "He never does one-on-ones after keynotes, never!" "I need my laptop," Marcus said, still dazed. "It's in my car." "No time for that." Dr. Chen's voice came from behind them. He had made his way over from his seat. "Use mine. I've got all the major ML frameworks installed. We can download your code from your repository." Marcus turned to him in surprise. "How did you—" "I've been watching your GitHub commits for the past hour," Dr. Chen admitted. "After our conversation this morning, I looked you up. Your work is impressive, very impressive." Security was already approaching, ready to escort Marcus to the private meeting area. Sarah quickly hugged him. "Go, change the world, and text me everything." As Marcus followed the security team through a series of exclusive areas, he felt the weight of his circumstances lifting. For 2 years, he'd been focused solely on survival, finding safe places to park, maintaining his grades, keeping his situation hidden. But now something was shifting. He thought of Mr. Wilson, who had given him shelter during storms, of Ms. Rivera, who had believed in him enough to break rules, of Sarah, who had helped him navigate this world of privilege and power, and of Emma, watching their aunt's small TV in Oregon, probably having no idea that her brother's life was about to change dramatically. The security team stopped at a door marked private. Inside, he could hear Elon Musk's voice discussing technical specifications with someone. In a few moments, he would walk through that door and show one of the world's most innovative minds what he'd been working on from the front seat of his Honda Civic. Marcus straightened his borrowed tie, took a deep breath, and nodded to the security guard. The door opened, and he stepped forward into whatever future awaited him. The private meeting room felt surreal. Sleek, modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking San Francisco's skyline, and there, settling into a leather chair with a cup of coffee, was Elon Musk. 2 Tesla engineers joined them, along with Dr. Chen, who had been invited to provide his expertise. "All right, Marcus," Musk said, gesturing to the laptop Dr. Chen had provided. "Show me what you've got." Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up his repository and downloading his project files. Years of coding in his car had taught him to work efficiently under pressure. Within minutes, his neural network visualization filled the screen. "I started with a basic premise," Marcus began, his initial nervousness giving way to the confidence that came from knowing his subject matter. "Current renewable energy storage systems waste potential because they can't accurately predict optimal distribution patterns. My algorithm learns from historical usage data to create predictive models that—" "Show me the code," Musk interrupted, leaning forward. "Not the presentation version, the actual implementation." Marcus nodded, switching to his core files. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning as Musk and the engineers studied his work. Dr. Chen occasionally made quiet noises of approval. "This is unexpected," Musk said finally. "You wrote this while living in your car?" "Yes, sir. The school's Wi-Fi reaches the parking lot if you know where to park." One of the Tesla engineers spoke up. "The optimization approach is novel. We've been working on similar problems, but this distributed learning model could reduce computational overhead by at least 30%. More like 40% once the secondary training sets are implemented," Marcus added. I haven't had access to enough processing power to fully test it, but the simulations suggest you'll have access now, Musk interrupted. He turned to his assistant, who had been quietly taking notes. Get him set up with full dev resources, and find out where he's parked. We'll need to move his car. Marcus's heart skipped. Move it? Can't have you sleeping in a car anymore. Not while you're working with us. Musk's matter-of-fact tone made it clear this wasn't up for discussion. We'll set you up with temporary housing until something permanent can be arranged. But first, he turned back to the laptop. Talk me through this neural network architecture. What made you choose this particular approach? For the next 2 hours, Marcus explained his work in detail. The Tesla engineers asked increasingly technical questions, while Dr. Chen occasionally interjected with suggestions for improvements. Musk remained largely silent, absorbing everything with intense focus. Finally, Musk held up a hand. Enough technical discussion. Let's talk about your situation. He fixed Marcus with a direct stare. Tell me about your sister. Marcus hesitated. He'd been careful not to share too many details about Emma, protecting her location and circumstances. She's safe, he said carefully, living with our aunt in Oregon. But not you? The apartment was too small for both of us. I made sure she got the spot. Musk nodded slowly. And your parents? Car accident. 2 years ago. The room fell silent again. Marcus could feel the weight of unasked questions hanging in the air. Here's what we're going to do, Musk said finally. First, you're joining our advanced AI development team. Full internship, full pay, effective immediately. Dr. Chen has already offered to supervise your work, and I'm adding 2 of our senior engineers as mentors. Marcus's head spun. Was this really happening? Second, Musk continued, we're getting you proper housing. There's a corporate apartment building near the office. You'll have a 2-bedroom unit, enough space for when your sister visits. Sir, I can't. You can, and you will. Musk cut him off. Consider it part of your internship package. But here's the deal. You finish high school. No dropping out, no shortcuts. Education matters, especially in this field. Yes, sir. And Marcus? Musk's expression softened slightly. Call your sister. Tell her things are about to change. The next few hours passed in a blur. Papers were signed, arrangements were made, and Marcus found himself with an employee badge, a key to a furnished apartment, and a schedule for his first day of work. Dr. Chen had already started outlining a development plan that would allow Marcus to balance his school obligations with his new role. As evening approached, a Tesla pulled up outside the Moscone Center. Marcus's old Honda had already been moved to secure parking near his new apartment. The driver had instructions to take him there after one final stop. The school, Marcus said when asked where he needed to go. There's someone I need to thank. Sun was setting when the Tesla pulled into Palo Alto High School's parking lot. Marcus found Ms. Rivera in her usual spot, the computer lab, staying late to help students like she had helped him. She looked up as he entered, then did a double take at his appearance. The borrowed dress shirt was wrinkled now, his tie slightly askew, but he carried himself differently. Marcus, what happened? You look like someone who just got hired by Tesla. He couldn't keep the smile from his face. Ms. Rivera's eyes widened. Tell me everything. So he did. The early morning line, the chance encounter in the bathroom, the question during Q&A, the private meeting, all of it. Ms. Rivera listened without interrupting, tears forming in her eyes. I knew, she said finally. I knew you were special from the first day you stayed late to work on that machine learning project. But this, she gestured at his employee badge. This is beyond even my wildest hopes. I couldn't have done it without you, Marcus said. The early morning lab access, the shirt and tie, all the times you covered for me. You did this yourself, she insisted. I just opened a few doors. You walked through them on your own. Marcus shook his head. You did more than that. You showed me it was possible. That someone like me could... He had to stop, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Ms. Rivera stood and hugged him tightly. "Your parents would be so proud," she whispered. When they separated, both wiping their eyes, Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small package. "I almost forgot. This is for you." Inside was a handwritten note and a familiar key, the one to the computer lab's back door. "Keep it," Ms. Rivera said, "for the next student who needs a little help believing in themselves." Marcus nodded, understanding. "I'll be back. To mentor, to help, like you helped me. I know you will." She smiled. "Now go. Call your sister. Start your new life." Outside, the Tesla waited silently. As Marcus settled into the back seat, his phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Dad just told me everything. We're celebrating this weekend. No arguments." Another text followed quickly. "BTW, your GitHub repo just got about 10,000 new followers. You're kinda famous now." Marcus leaned back in the leather seat, so different from his car's worn upholstery. In a few minutes, he would arrive at his new apartment. Tomorrow, he would start his new job. Soon, he would see Emma again. But first, he had a call to make. As the Tesla glided through the darkening streets of Palo Alto, Marcus dialed his sister's number. It rang twice before Emma's voice filled the car's speakers. "Marcus, why are you calling so early? Is everything okay?" He smiled, watching the familiar streets of his old life pass by for the last time. "Everything's perfect, Em, and you're not going to believe what just happened." "You're right. Let me continue." Chapter 4. To complete the full 3,000 words, Marcus. Emma's voice wavered with concern. "You're scaring me. What's going on?" He took a deep breath, watching the city lights blur past the Tesla's tinted windows. "Remember how we always talked about making it big in Silicon Valley someday? About changing the world?" "Yeah." She sounded uncertain. "Well, little sis, I just met Elon Musk. And not just met him, I showed him my AI project. The one you helped me debug last month. He loved it. I'm now officially a Tesla intern." The silence that followed was so long that Marcus checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. Then came the scream, so loud that the Tesla's driver actually jumped. "You what?" Emma's voice cracked with excitement. "Oh my God, Marcus, how? When? Tell me everything." So he did, starting with the ticket bot and ending with his new apartment. Emma interrupted frequently with questions and exclamations, her enthusiasm making him smile wider with each passing minute. "But here's the best part," he said finally. "The apartment has 2 bedrooms. Musk specifically mentioned space for when you visit. And I'm thinking maybe it doesn't have to be just visits." Another silence fell, this one heavy with understanding. "You mean?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I mean that once I'm settled, once I prove myself at Tesla and get everything stable, maybe you could come live with me. Finish high school here in Palo Alto, we could be together again." He heard a muffled sob. "Marcus, are you sure? It's so much. I'm sure. Everything I've done for the past 2 years. Living in the car, keeping up my grades, working on the AI project, it was all for this. For us to have a real chance." The Tesla turned onto a quiet street lined with modern apartment buildings. The driver pointed to one of them. "That's yours, sir." Marcus stared at the building, all glass and steel and possibility. I just got to my new place. Want to see it?" "Yes, video call now." He switched to video as he entered the building, Emma's excited face filling his screen. Together, they explored the apartment, the fully furnished rooms, the state-of-the-art kitchen, the view of the Bay Area from the balcony. "This is insane," Emma kept saying. Like actually insane. In the second bedroom, her future bedroom, Marcus finally let himself feel the full weight of the day's events. He sank onto the bed, emotions overwhelming him. "I wish Mom and Dad could see this," he said quietly. Emma's face softened. "They can, Marcus. They're watching, and they're so proud of you." A knock at the door interrupted their moment. Marcus opened it to find a Tesla employee with several bags. "Mr. Musk asked us to deliver some essentials," the woman explained. "Clothes, toiletries, a new laptop, and..." She handed him a small envelope. This. Inside was a note in Musk's distinctive handwriting. Pain tolerance got you this far. Now let's see what you can do with proper resources. Don't forget about that 40% efficiency improvement you promised. What is it? Emma asked, trying to see through the video call. Marcus showed her the note. Proof that sometimes the craziest dreams come true. After the Tesla employee left, Marcus and Emma talked for another hour, making plans for the future. She would finish her current semester in Oregon. Then they'd work on transferring her to Palo Alto High. Ms. Rivera had already offered to help with the arrangements. I should let you get some sleep, Emma said finally, yawning. You have a big day tomorrow. First day at Tesla and all. Yeah, Marcus smiled. No more sleeping in the car. Marcus? Her voice turned serious. Thank you. For everything. For making sure I was safe. For never giving up. For being the best big brother anyone could ask for. Always, Em. Always. After they hung up, Marcus stood on his new balcony, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, his old Honda sat in a parking garage, no longer needed as a bedroom. Tomorrow he would walk into Tesla's headquarters as an employee. Soon he would have his sister back. His phone buzzed with one final text for the night, from an unknown number. Meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp. Bring your appetite for impossible problems. And Marcus smiled, thinking of what Musk had said about pain tolerance being a superpower. He'd endured so much to get here, but now, standing in his new apartment with a Tesla badge in his pocket, and his sister's future secure, he knew it had all been worth it. He had refused to give up, and the world had finally noticed. The next morning arrived with the kind of clarity that only life-changing days seemed to possess. Marcus woke before his alarm, still adjusting to the strange comfort of a real bed after 2 years of sleeping in his car. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating his new reality. He dressed carefully in the clothes Tesla had provided, dark jeans, a crisp white shirt, and a company-branded jacket that fit perfectly. Someone had done their homework on his size. The new laptop sat on the kitchen counter, already configured with all the development tools he'd need. At precisely 7:30 a.m., his phone buzzed with a text. Car waiting downstairs. EM. The same Tesla from yesterday idled in front of his building, its black paint gleaming in the morning light. The driver, introducing himself as James, handed Marcus a protein shake and a tablet containing his orientation materials. Mr. Musk insists all new team members review these before arrival, James explained, especially the sections on innovation protocols and confidentiality agreements. The drive to Tesla headquarters took 20 minutes, during which Marcus absorbed pages of information about his new role. His mind raced with possibilities, not just for his AI project, but for all the other innovations he might contribute to. The Tesla campus sprawled before them, a testament to modern engineering and ambition. Security waved them through after scanning Marcus's new badge, and James dropped him off at the main entrance. Good luck, Mr. Thompson, James said with a knowing smile. Something tells me you're going to need it. The lobby buzzed with morning activity. A young woman in a Tesla polo shirt approached him immediately. Marcus Thompson, I'm Amy Chen, your orientation coordinator. And yes, I'm Dr. Chen's daughter. He wouldn't stop talking about you last night. She led him through a maze of corridors, explaining security protocols and access levels. Other employees nodded as they passed, some doing double takes when they recognized him from yesterday's summit. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Fair warning, Amy said as they approached a conference room. This isn't going to be a normal first day. Mr. Musk has completely reorganized the morning schedule to focus on your project. Before Marcus could process this, the conference room door opened. Inside, Elon Musk sat at the head of a table surrounded by engineers, including the two from yesterday's meeting. Dr. Chen stood at a whiteboard covered in complex equations. Right on time, Musk said, gesturing to an empty seat. Sleep well in a real bed? Yes, sir, thank you. Good, because you won't be getting much sleep for the next few weeks. Musk turned to the room. For those who haven't heard, Marcus here has developed a neural network that could potentially increase our grid storage efficiency by 40%. That's not just an incremental improvement. It's a game changer for renewable energy adoption. He stood, moving to the whiteboard. But here's the challenge. His code was written with limited resources, running simulations on a laptop in a car. We need to scale it up, optimize it for our systems, and test it in real-world conditions, and we need to do it fast. Dr. Chen stepped forward. I've reviewed the core architecture. The principles are sound, but we'll need to rebuild significant portions for enterprise-level implementation. How long? Musk asked. Traditional timeline, 6 months minimum. You have 6 weeks. The room erupted in protests and technical objections. Marcus watched the exchange, his mind already racing with solutions. He raised his hand slightly, drawing Musk's attention. Yes? What if we didn't rebuild it? Marcus suggested. What if we treated my code as a prototype and built a wrapper system around it? We could maintain the core logic while scaling up the infrastructure. The room fell silent. Dr. Chen turned back to the whiteboard, sketching rapidly. That could work. We'd need to modify the data handling protocols, but the basic architecture could remain intact. How long? Musk asked again. Dr. Chen calculated quickly. With a dedicated team, maybe 8 weeks? 6 weeks, Musk repeated firmly. Marcus, you'll lead the core development team. Dr. Chen will supervise, but this is your project. Make it happen. And just like that, Marcus found himself in charge of a major Tesla initiative. The meeting transformed into a rapid-fire planning session, with engineers proposing implementation strategies and resource allocations. By lunchtime, Marcus's head was spinning with information. His new team had been assembled: 6 senior engineers, 3 AI specialists, and a dedicated infrastructure group. They had commandeered a large project room, walls already covered with diagrams and timelines. Holding up okay? Dr. Chen asked during a brief break. This is a lot to handle on your first day. Marcus nodded, studying the project timeline. It's intense, but it feels right. Like everything I've been working on was leading to this. That's because it was. They turned to find Musk in the doorway. Come on, we're having lunch in my office. There's something else we need to discuss. Musk's office was surprisingly modest, with most of the space dedicated to whiteboards and engineering models. A simple lunch of sandwiches and fruit had been laid out on a conference table. Your sister, Musk said without preamble. When can she move here? Marcus nearly choked on his sandwich. Sir? I had my team look into your situation. Emma Thompson, 16, currently living with your aunt in Portland, straight A student, particularly gifted in mathematics and computer science. Sound familiar? You investigated my sister? I investigate everything that matters. Musk's expression was unreadable. The question is, why didn't you tell me she's also a coding prodigy? Marcus set down his sandwich. How did you? Her GitHub profile. Not hard to find, considering she uses some of your base libraries in her projects. That quantum computing simulation she's working on? Impressive stuff for a 16-year-old. A surge of pride mixed with protective instinct rose in Marcus's chest. She's amazing, but I wanted to make sure everything was stable here first before. It's stable, Musk interrupted. I've already contacted Palo Alto High School. They're prepared to accept her transfer immediately. The apartment's ready. The only question is, what are you waiting for? Marcus stared at his new mentor, emotions warring inside him. Sir, I appreciate everything you've done, but this feels like too much. I can't ask for. You're not asking, I'm offering. Or, more accurately, I'm investing. In both of you. Musk leaned forward. Do you know what the biggest problem in tech is right now? Not funding, not hardware limitations. It's finding people who can think differently, who can see solutions where others see only problems. He stood, pacing the office. You lived in a car for 2 years, working on advanced AI algorithms between classes. Your sister taught herself quantum computing while living in a one-bedroom apartment with your aunt. That's the kind of determination and innovative thinking we need. But no buts. Call your sister. Get her here. The sooner both Thompson siblings are working on the future, the better. Marcus pulled out his phone, staring at it for a long moment. What about our aunt? She's been so good to Emma. Already handled, Musk replied. We're offering her a position in our Portland office. Remote work options, full benefits. She can visit whenever she wants. The pieces were falling into place so perfectly it felt surreal. Marcus thought of all the nights he'd lain awake in his car, dreaming of reuniting with Emma, of giving her the opportunities she deserved. Now it was actually happening. He dialed Emma's number, putting it on speaker at Musk's gesture. Marcus, aren't you supposed to be at work? Emma answered, concern in her voice. I am at work. You're on speaker with Elon Musk. A crash sounded through the phone, followed by muffled cursing. What? Hello, Emma, Musk said, amusement coloring his tone. I've been looking at your quantum computing project, particularly interested in your approach to qubit stabilization. There was a long silence, then Emma's voice came back, steadier but still shocked. Mr. Musk, thank you. It's still in early stages, but I've been working on a new method for reducing decoherence in quantum systems. I know. That's why I want you in Palo Alto. Your brother's leading our AI grid optimization project, but we could use your quantum computing expertise in other areas. Another crash. You want what? Marcus jumped in. They're offering you a place here. School transfer, everything's arranged. You and I would be together again, working on actual world-changing projects. But Aunt Sarah, she's being taken care of, Marcus assured her. Tesla's offering her a position too, everyone wins. The silence that followed was heavy with possibility. When Emma spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. When? How fast can you pack? Musk asked. Give me 2 days? Done. The company. Jet will pick you up Thursday morning. Bring your aunt if she wants to see the new setup. Musk turned to Marcus. Take Thursday and Friday off to get her settled. But remember, 6-week deadline. After the call ended, Marcus sat back, overwhelmed. Sir, I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by delivering that 40% efficiency improvement. And by the way, Musk pulled up a holographic display showing complex quantum calculations. These are from your sister's latest commit. Look familiar? Marcus studied the equations, then laughed. She's been working on quantum optimization for power grid systems. She was trying to solve the same problem I was, just from a different angle. Exactly. Sometimes the best solutions come from combining different perspectives. Musk stood, signaling the end of lunch. Get back to your team. You've got a lot to accomplish before your sister arrives. The rest of the day passed in a blur of coding sessions, team meetings, and infrastructure planning. By evening, the project room had transformed into a command center, with multiple screens displaying real-time simulations of Marcus's neural network. As he prepared to leave, Dr. Chen caught up with him. One more thing, he said, handing Marcus a business card. My wife's a real estate agent. Call her when you're ready to look for a house. That apartment's great for now, but with both you and Emma working here. Marcus stared at the card. A house? But I just got the apartment. Trust me. Dr. Chen smiled. At the rate you're going, you'll need the space sooner than you think. The Tesla was waiting to take him home, but Marcus asked to make one stop first. He needed to see his old Honda one last time. In the corporate parking garage, his car sat exactly where it had been left. Marcus ran his hand along the worn hood, remembering all the nights he'd spent here, coding by the light of his laptop, refusing to give up on his dreams. He opened the door one last time, breathing in the familiar scent. Under the passenger seat, he found what he was looking for, an old family photo taken just months before the accident. His parents stood proudly behind him and Emma, all of them smiling at a future they couldn't see. We did it, he whispered to the photo. We really did it. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Just told Aunt Sarah everything. She cried, then started packing immediately. See you Thursday, big bro. We're really doing this. Marcus smiled, carefully placing the photo in his wallet. Tomorrow, he'd lead a team of brilliant engineers in revolutionizing energy storage. The day after that, he'd start preparing for Emma's arrival. And soon, the Thompson siblings would be working side by side, changing the world just like they'd always dreamed. But tonight, he just wanted to remember where it all started, in a Honda Civic that had been more than just a car. It had been a classroom, an office, and a reminder that sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most amazing destinations. As he walked away, another text came through, this one from Musk. Cars being detailed and donated to a student in need. Your story continues through others. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we change the world. Marcus looked back one last time at his old car, then toward the gleaming Tesla waiting to take him home. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Past and future, struggle and success, separation and reunion. He thought of Emma's quantum calculations overlapping with his AI algorithms, of two siblings working separately on the same problem, driven by the same determination. Maybe that's what Musk had seen in them, not just individual talent, but the power of shared dreams and unwavering persistence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, Marcus Thompson, former car resident and newly minted Tesla team leader, allowed himself to simply feel grateful. Grateful for every hardship that had led him here, every person who had helped along the way, and every dream that had refused to die in the dark hours of night. The future was calling, and this time, both Thompson siblings would answer together. Thursday. Morning arrived with a sense of electric anticipation. Marcus paced the private terminal at San Francisco International Airport, watching through floor-to-ceiling windows as Tesla's corporate jet descended from the cloudy sky. His heart raced with each passing second. After 2 long years, he was finally about to reunite with his sister. Dr. Chen stood nearby, having insisted on being present for this moment. Nervous? He asked, noting Marcus's constant movement. Excited. Terrified. Everything at once, Marcus admitted. What if she takes one look at all this and thinks it's too much pressure? From what I've seen of her code repositories, pressure isn't something that scares Emma Thompson. Dr. Chen smiled. Besides, she's got you. The jet taxied to a stop, its sleek white form bearing the Tesla logo. Marcus held his breath as the door opened and the stairs descended. First came Aunt Sarah, looking both overwhelmed and proud. And then, Marcus. Emma practically flew down the stairs, her dark hair streaming behind her. She crashed into her brother with enough force to make him stumble backward, both of them laughing and crying at once. You're really here, Marcus whispered, hugging his sister tightly. You're actually here. Look at you. Emma pulled back, taking in his Tesla jacket and professional appearance. You look so grown up. And you look taller, he replied, realizing she'd grown at least 2 inches since he'd last seen her. Aunt Sarah approached more slowly, tears in her eyes. Marcus, honey, I can't believe all this. She hugged him as well, then stepped back to look at both siblings together. Your parents would be so proud. Mrs. Thompson? Dr. Chen stepped forward. I'm Robert Chen, Marcus's supervisor. Welcome to San Francisco. We have a car waiting to take you to your hotel, and then perhaps you'd like to see where these two will be working. The drive to Tesla headquarters was filled with excited chatter. Emma couldn't stop asking questions about everything. The AI project, the quantum computing lab they'd set up for her, the school transfer details. Marcus answered what he could, still amazed at how quickly everything had come together. As they pulled into the Tesla campus, Emma pressed her face against the window. This is insane, she whispered. We're actually going to work here? Wait until you see the quantum lab, Marcus grinned. Musk spared no expense. The tour began in Marcus's project room where his team was already hard at work. The walls were covered with even more diagrams and data readouts than before, and several engineers were engaged in an intense discussion about neural network optimization. Emma! Amy Chen called out, hurrying over. I'm so glad you're here. Want to see what your brother's been up to? For the next hour, Emma absorbed everything, The AI architecture, the implementation plans, the potential impact on global energy systems. Her questions grew increasingly technical, impressing even the senior engineers. "She's definitely your sister," one of them muttered to Marcus. "Same scary, smart intensity." Finally, it was time for the moment Emma had been waiting for. They took an elevator to a secure sublevel, where 2 security checkpoints led to a specially designed quantum computing lab. "This is where you'll be working," Dr. Chen explained as the doors opened. "When you're not in school, of course." Emma stopped in the doorway, mouth open. The lab was state-of-the-art, with equipment she'd only read about in research papers. A dedicated quantum processor hummed quietly in a temperature-controlled chamber, while holographic displays showed real-time quantum state calculations. Is that an actual quantum computer?" she whispered. "A small one," a familiar voice answered. Everyone turned to find Elon Musk entering from a side door. "But we're building a bigger one based on your decoherence reduction proposals." Emma gripped Marcus's arm so tightly he winced. "Mr. Musk, thank you, this is beyond anything I could have imagined." "Thank your brother," Musk replied. "His faith in you made this an easy decision." He turned to Marcus. "How's the neural network implementation coming along?" "On schedule. We've already seen a 25% improvement in initial tests. The full 40% looks achievable within our timeline." "Good, because I'm adding another component to the project." Musk gestured to Emma. "Your sister's quantum optimization algorithms could potentially enhance your AI's processing efficiency. I want you two working together on this." The siblings exchanged excited looks. They'd always dreamed of collaborating on projects, but this was beyond their wildest expectations. "Sir?" Emma said hesitantly. "I've been thinking about the integration possibilities. If we combine quantum superposition principles with the neural network's learning algorithms—" "Show me," Musk interrupted, moving to a nearby whiteboard. What followed was an intense technical discussion that left even the senior engineers struggling to keep up. Emma's quantum computing insights meshed perfectly with Marcus's AI architecture, creating possibilities neither had considered alone. Aunt Sarah watched from the sidelines, tears flowing freely now. "Look at them," she whispered to Dr. Chen. "They're in their element, both of them." "They're extraordinary," Dr. Chen agreed, "but more importantly, they have each other now." The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of activity. Emma's school registration was finalized, her class schedule carefully designed to accommodate her work at Tesla. The apartment was set up with everything she needed, including a state-of-the-art workstation in her bedroom. That evening, after Aunt Sarah had gone to her hotel to rest, the siblings sat on their apartment's balcony watching the sun set over Silicon Valley. "Remember when we used to talk about working together someday?" Emma asked, sipping hot chocolate. "Back when you were teaching me to code?" "Yeah, but I was thinking more along the lines of a small startup," Marcus laughed. "Not revolutionizing energy storage at Tesla. It's crazy, right? All of this?" She gestured at the view, the apartment, their new life. "Sometimes I feel like I'm going to wake up and be back in Portland." "I know the feeling. This morning I still reached for my car keys out of habit before remembering I don't live there anymore." Emma's expression grew serious. "I'm sorry you had to go through that, Marcus. Living in your car, being alone for so long." "Hey, no." He turned to face her. "Everything I did for us. And it led us here. No regrets." Still, Emma pulled out her laptop, opening a folder of quantum calculations. "I was working on this the whole time, you know. Trying to figure out how to make enough money with quantum computing to help you. I just never thought that we'd end up working on the same problem from different angles." Marcus smiled. "Musk says that's why he wanted both of us. Different perspectives, same determination." "Speaking of determination," Emma pulled up her latest code. "I think I found a way to optimize your neural network's decision-making process using quantum entanglement principles. Want to take a look?" For the next few hours, they worked side by side, just like they used to before everything changed. But now, instead of working in their parents' garage or at the local library, They were in their own apartment, with cutting-edge equipment and the resources of a major tech company at their disposal. Around midnight, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Musk. Saw the latest commits from both of you. Integration looks promising. Remember, changing the world requires rest too. See you both tomorrow. Emma yawned, stretching. He's right. We should sleep. Big day tomorrow. Yeah, your first full day at Tesla. Nervous? Terrified? Excited? Everything at once. She smiled, echoing his words from the airport. As they prepared for bed, Marcus paused in the hallway between their rooms. On the wall hung the family photo he'd retrieved from his car, now properly framed. Their parents smiled out at them, forever frozen in that moment of pride and hope. "We did it, Mom and Dad," he whispered. "We're together again. We're making it." "Marcus," Emma called from her room. "Thank you. For everything. Always, Em. Always." Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There were deadlines to meet, innovations to perfect, and a world to change. But tonight, in their new home high above Silicon Valley, the Thompson siblings were finally where they belonged, together, coding the future they'd always dreamed about. The auditorium had long emptied, yet echoes of the day's applause lingered in the air like static on an old radio. Marcus sat in the front row now, alone, staring at the stage where his world had shifted. Elon Musk's words weren't just an answer, they had been a mirror. And in that mirror, Marcus saw the ghost of a boy still clinging to survival, but also the shimmer of a man learning how to build something lasting. He turned the paper over in his hand for the 100th time. The business card with Musk's personal assistant's number, hastily scribbled, almost like an afterthought. But Marcus knew better. That card was a key. Not to a door someone else would open, but to one he'd have to build, bolt by bolt, out of scraped-up courage and borrowed time. Doubt had begun to creep in like the chill that settled on the city after sundown. He'd tasted the kind of hope that burned too hot, just enough to light you up, but just as quick to leave you with nothing but ash. Back at the car, his temporary shelter, his office, his confession booth, he opened his worn laptop. The screen, flickered to life, cracked in the corner but still faithful. He pulled up his business plan. He'd rewritten it at least a dozen times since the conference. What began as a simple app idea for connecting underprivileged youth to job training programs had grown into something sharper, more daring, a decentralized platform with AI-powered mentorship and resource distribution, part tech, part lifeline. Each revision brought clarity. Each addition raised more questions. Could someone like him, uncredentialed, unconnected, uninvited, actually pull this off? That night, Marcus parked closer to Ocean Beach. He liked the lull of the waves, the way the fog wrapped around the car, like a blanket. He thought of his mom, the way she used to tuck him in when they still had a home. He pressed his forehead against the window, watching mist gather on the glass. Doubt and resolve did battle in his chest, but it was what happened the next morning that turned the tide. At a makeshift cafe down in the Mission, Marcus was halfway through revising his pitch deck when he saw her. Ava, she was the journalism grad student who'd interviewed him after the Q&A, notebook in hand and eyes sharp with curiosity. She hadn't seemed like the rest. And now, as she ordered a black coffee and sat 2 tables away, he couldn't ignore the synchronicity. He approached her, hesitant but steady. "You remember me?" he asked. Ava looked up, blinked once, and smiled. "I was hoping you'd say something." They talked for an hour. Then 2. She'd been working on a piece about systemic youth homelessness, and his story had caught the attention of a major publication. But more than that, she believed in the idea, in him. "I'm not just writing about this," she said. "I want to help build it." That was the first yes, and it changed everything. They spent the following week working in borrowed Wi-Fi cafes, side by side. Ava helped him refine his message, reach out to local nonprofits, and set up a pilot framework. Every meeting was a gamble, but his story gave him currency, and his resolve anchored in experience, not theory, gave him weight. There were setbacks. Of course. One potential investor dismissed them outright. Another offered money, but with strings that would gut the platform's purpose. Those moments stung. But Marcus learned fast. Rejection wasn't the opposite of success. It was its proving ground. With Ava's network and a few good breaks, they got a meeting at a mid-tier VC firm in Palo Alto. The pitch was scheduled for next Tuesday. As they prepped, Marcus stood before the mirror in a thrifted blazer, hands shaking, just slightly. "You look the part," Ava said from behind him. "But more importantly, you are the part." He nodded slowly. He was starting to believe that too. Then his phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. 3 words. "He's watching. Prepare." Marcus froze. He didn't have to ask who he was. Marcus read the message again, heart hammering. "He's watching. Prepare." No signature. No sender ID. Just a quiet warning. Or a promise. He showed the text to Ava. Her eyebrows furrowed. "Do you think it's from Musk's assistant? Maybe he wants to see how serious you are before committing anything?" "Maybe," Marcus murmured, though the unease in his gut suggested otherwise. This didn't feel like corporate vetting. It felt personal. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he mapped everything out. Not just the pitch, but the rollout plan, the outreach strategy, the privacy safeguards, even fallback contingencies. Every choice had to serve a purpose. Every word had to carry weight. There was no room left for improvisation. Not here, not now. By the morning of the pitch, San Francisco was cloaked in gray. A light drizzle tapped at the windshield as Ava drove them south toward Palo Alto. Marcus watched the city blur past, a half-remembered dream of alleyways and asphalt. "Still nervous?" she asked. "Only about everything." She grinned. "Good. That means you care." They arrived at the investment firm's glass-paneled offices, tucked inside a minimalist tech campus dotted with Teslas and sponsored bicycles. The receptionist greeted them by name. Inside the boardroom, 3 partners sat across the long table, eyes already skimming the brief Marcus had sent ahead. "You have 15 minutes, the woman in the center said. Her name was Lynn. Her tone said she'd heard 1,000 pitches, this year alone. But Marcus didn't flinch. He began not with stats or slogans, but with a story. "My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm 17 years old. I've lived in a car for the past year and a half. And I built this because I couldn't afford for someone else to." He talked about the app, the partnerships they'd begun forming, the real-time benefits it already provided for a small group of pilot users. Ava tagged in smoothly to highlight scalability and media traction. By the 10-minute mark, Lynn was no longer glancing at her phone. At minute 14, Marcus ended the pitch with a line he hadn't planned. Don't need a handout. I need allies." Silence. Then Lynn leaned forward. "What happens when the VC money dries up?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "We scale down, not out. We cut bells before we cut lifelines. And if it fails, I rebuild. Because failure's not new to me, but quitting is." It wasn't a standing ovation, but it was a nod, a pause, a flicker of consideration. That was enough. Afterward, Ava hugged him in the parking lot. "No matter what happens next, you showed them who you are." But what happened next wasn't a waiting game. It was a test. 2 days later, Marcus got a call, not from Lynn, but from a different number, one he didn't recognize. "Elon wants to meet. Private, off record. Tonight." He stood there in the middle of the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear, while the wind carried voices and the scent of sea salt up from the Embarcadero. "Where?" he asked. "Top of Twin Peaks. Midnight. Alone." Midnight came wrapped in fog and mystery. Marcus stood at the summit, city lights winking below like the scattered pieces of a broken promise. A black Tesla Model X glided into view, silent as a ghost. The door opened and Elon stepped out. No entourage, no cameras, just the man himself in a windbreaker and jeans, eyes sharp under the moonlight. "I've been watching," he said simply. Marcus nodded. I got your message. Elon raised an eyebrow. Did you? What did it say? Prepare. A slight smile. Good. Because this next part isn't about ideas. It's about consequence. They walked along the ridge, fog curling around them, like breath. Elon spoke in fragments about vision, disruption, failure, fear, about how every innovation worth doing had nearly destroyed the people behind it. Most people only remember the launches, he said. Not the 10 crashes before them. You ready for that kind of pain? I already live it. Elon stopped walking. You know what the difference is between someone who makes it and someone who doesn't? Marcus waited. One of them learns how to turn pain into fuel. Elon pulled something from his pocket, a small flash drive. He handed it to Marcus. Blueprints, code, legal framework. Use it well, or don't. Either way, you've already done more than most would dare. Marcus stared at the flash drive in his palm. I thought you said no one gets a shortcut. Elon turned back toward the car. That's not a shortcut. That's a shovel. The digging's still yours. The days that followed blurred into motion. Funding came through, not from Lynn's firm, but from a smaller impact investor inspired by Ava's story. The platform launched quietly in beta, rolled out to 2 shelters, and a tech mentoring co-op. Marcus barely slept. Between code revisions, partnership meetings, and a sudden influx of media attention, the pressure mounted. But with every sleepless night came something more powerful than fear: momentum. Still, he knew it was all leading to one last moment. One final test, because the city council was about to vote on a controversial bill that would restrict where and how unhoused youth could live, including vehicle habitation, and Marcus had been invited to speak. Not as a case study, but as a voice. As he stood in the lobby of City Hall watching reporters gather, Ava squeezed his hand. No matter what happens in there, she said, this moment, you earned it. He walked toward the chamber doors. His reflection in the polished floor caught his eye. He didn't see a homeless teen. He saw a builder. The chamber was packed. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras poised like silent weapons. Activists filled the rows of public seating, some in branded shirts, others in worn hoodies and blankets, still clutching signs from the earlier protest outside. On the dais, the city council members adjusted microphones, straightened papers, postured like they weren't already exhausted by the topic. Marcus stepped up to the podium, heartbeat thudding like a war drum behind his ribs. He glanced to the left. Ava gave a nod. Just behind her, an older man from the youth shelter gave a fist-to-heart gesture. To his right, someone held a hand-lettered sign. We are not disposable. Chairwoman leaned forward. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Thompson. He nodded. Thank you, he began, voice calm, clear, but edged with emotion. My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm 17. I've been living in my car for the past year, and I'm not here to ask for sympathy. He paused, letting the silence stretch just enough. I'm here because this city is about to decide whether people like me are a problem to be hidden or a future to be invested in. He saw a few heads lift at that. The phrasing, unexpected, bold. Maybe you've heard my name before. Maybe you saw the clip from the tech conference or read the article Ava wrote. If you did, you know one thing already. I'm not alone. There are thousands of us, students, veterans, families, people doing everything right and still falling through cracks that aren't supposed to exist. He took a breath. When I asked Elon Musk for advice, I thought he'd tell me to work harder, but what he said, what he did, it taught me that the most powerful thing isn't just hard work, it's belief. Belief from someone who sees you, who says, you matter. Murmurs stirred through the crowd. So now I'm telling you, I've built something. It's small, but it's real. It connects unhoused youth with mentors, training, and a path forward. But if you pass this bill, if you criminalize where we sleep before you've even tried to help us rise, you're not solving the problem. You're burying it. The chairwoman shifted. A councilman leaned in, murmured something. But Marcus pressed on. I'm not just asking you to vote no. I'm asking you to stand up, to stop building fences and start building futures. Let this be the city that leads, the one that says, no one gets left behind, not just in slogans, but in law. He paused again, not out of nerves, for impact. And if that's not what this city stands for, then maybe we need to change more than just this bill. The room exploded into applause, not the kind that trickles up, but the kind that bursts forth like a dam breaking. Some stood, some cried. The chairwoman called for order with the gavel, but the moment had already landed. When Marcus stepped back from the podium, shoulders square, he felt taller somehow, not because he'd spoken perfectly, but because he'd said exactly what needed saying. The vote came hours later, 3 against the bill. It was a win. A big one. But the real climax wasn't just legislative. It came that night in the parking lot of a community center, where dozens gathered under string lights for the first live event of Marcus's app. Young people logged into the system, matched, instantly with mentors, volunteer therapists, career liaisons. One girl found an internship lead on the spot. Another burst into tears when her lost GED records were retrieved through a feature Ava had helped code. And in the middle of it all, Marcus stood stunned, not by the crowd, not even by the success, but by how right it felt. Not like an ending. Like a beginning. He didn't notice the black SUV pull up until it was right beside him. The window rolled down. Elon Musk leaned out. No cameras tonight, he said. I just came to see if you used the shovel. Marcus stepped forward. I did. You ready to build something even bigger? Only if I'm not building it alone. Elon nodded once. That's the only way it works. Then he handed Marcus something. A slim card, metallic engraved, Tesla Innovation Fellowship. Marcus stared at it, stunned. What is this? A seat at the table. 6 months later, the city had changed, but not as much as Marcus had. He stood at the edge of the bay, the morning fog rolling in like an old friend, softening the skyline behind him. His breath misted in the cold air. He sipped from a thermos Ava had brought him, black coffee, bitter and grounding. Behind him, the new hub for the Uplink initiative was coming to life. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't sleek. It was a reclaimed library, shuttered during budget cuts years ago, now pulsing with energy. Teens from all walks of life poured through the doors each day, some with backpacks, some with nothing but the clothes they wore. Inside, they found food, charging stations, sleeping pods, peer mentorships, coding classes, and most importantly, a place where they were seen. Ava had called it a nerve center for human potential. Marcus called it home. Early as ever, Ava's voice rang out behind him. He turned, smiling. You're late. She held up a bag. I brought scones. I feel like I should get some forgiveness. He laughed. A real one. The kind that had come easier lately. Scones buy you time, not forgiveness. They walked together toward the building. A mural covered its eastern wall now, painted by local youth. It showed a boy sitting on a roof of a rusted car, staring at a city skyline. But if you looked closer, the buildings were circuits, the stars were algorithms, and the boy's eyes were filled with fire. Marcus had stood for hours in front of that mural the day it was unveiled, not because he saw himself in it, but because he saw what came after. Inside, the space was humming with quiet motion. Volunteer mentors moved between pods, checking on students. A therapy dog curled near the beanbags. A makeshift cafe offered donated pastries and subsidized coffee. At the back wall, a digital board tallied real-time statistics. Lives reached, 3,426 jobs created, 212 mentorship hours. Logged, 9,601. Ava updated the board every week. Not to brag, but to remind them. Remind them that this wasn't a dream anymore. Councilwoman Lynn is stopping by at noon, Ava said, pulling out her tablet. She wants to talk about expanding the model to other neighborhoods. Marcus raised an eyebrow. She voted against us. She changed her mind, did she? Or did her approval rating change? Ava smirked. Does it matter? No, Marcus admitted. I guess it doesn't. They walked past a group of youth clustered around an older man teaching resume building. Marcus, a voice called, from across the atrium. It was Darnell, a 19-year-old who had once been arrested for sleeping in a park bathroom. Now he was working part-time at a cybersecurity firm and had just passed his CompTIA Security Plus. I got the callback interview, he said, grinning wide. Marcus fist-bumped him. You'll crush it. As Darnell walked away, Ava gave him a side glance. You know he quoted you in his essay? Marcus blinked. What? His college application essay. What you said in the council meeting. It's in there. Word for word. He looked down for a moment. I didn't ask for any of this, he said softly. I know, she said, but you answered when it asked for you. Later that afternoon, Marcus sat in the corner of the quiet lounge space upstairs. It was a room they'd added in the second phase of renovations. Sunlit, carpeted with shelves full of donated books and mismatched chairs that somehow made the space feel lived in, not institutional. He sat across from someone he hadn't seen in months, his mother. Sober now. For real this time. Her hands were thinner, her hair longer. She looked older than she should have, but calmer too, like a storm had passed through her and finally moved on. They hadn't spoken much since the night she'd disappeared again, but she was here now. Because he had reached out. Marcus had struggled with the decision. Pride, pain, and self-preservation had all shouted reasons not to. But something else, a quiet need for wholeness, had won out. I've been following what you're doing, she said softly, tracing the rim of her paper cup. The papers and the news, it's everywhere. God, Marcus, you're incredible. He didn't respond immediately, just watched her. You don't owe me anything, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know. I hurt. You. He nodded. Yeah, you did. Her eyes brimmed, but he didn't reach to comfort her. That wasn't what this moment was for. It was for honesty, for choice. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she continued. I'm asking for a chance, maybe a small one, to be part of something again. He looked out the window at the city, alive in its contradictions, sky-high cranes beside homeless encampments, rooftop gardens next to boarded-up buildings, San Francisco in all its broken glory. I'm not that kid anymore, he said. I can't pretend it didn't shape me, but I also can't carry it, forever. I'm trying to let go of what doesn't serve me. She nodded, eyes glistening. I don't know what being your mom means now, she said, but I'd like to find out, if you ever want to. He hesitated. Then, one step at a time, the weeks passed. Summer came, and with it, expansion. The Uplink initiative launched its second center in Oakland and a pilot program in Detroit. Thanks to new funding streams, some corporate, some crowdsourced, some gifted anonymously from former billionaires, who'd watched Marcus speak and felt something crack open in their chests. Marcus found himself on podcasts, in interviews, in boardrooms with polished executives asking if his model could scale. He kept answering the same way. We're not scaling a product. We're nurturing a principle. That earned him both admiration and resistance, but he didn't care, because every time he walked into the hub and saw someone charging their phone, getting tutoring, finding out their future wasn't closed after all, it was enough. One evening, months later, Marcus returned to a place he hadn't been since the very beginning. The lot where he'd once parked his car night after night. It was mostly empty now. The no trespassing signs still hung on the fences. The ground was cracked, weeds pushing through like stubborn dreams. But the skyline loomed in the distance, the way it always had, watchful, unreachable, but no longer indifferent. He walked past the row where his car had been. The spot was faded, but still recognizable. He sat on the curb and closed his eyes. The wind rustled papers behind the fence. And then, Footsteps. He turned. It was Omar, the boy from the shelter, now taller with a little weight on his frame, a tattoo peeking from beneath his sleeve. He was balancing 2 coffees. "Saw your bike out front," Omar said, handing him one. "Thought you might still come here." Marcus accepted the cup. "Didn't expect company. Figured you wouldn't mind." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Omar said, "You remember the first night we met?" Marcus nodded. "You told me I was too clean to survive out here." Omar chuckled. "Still true. You had, like, conditioner in your backpack." Marcus laughed. "Hey, priorities." They sipped coffee. "Things are different now," Omar said after a while. "But sometimes I still wake up and expect to be back under that overpass." "Me too." Omar turned to him. "You ever think we'll really be out of it? Like, really out?" Marcus looked at him. "I don't think that's the point." "What is?" "Not forgetting. But not staying stuck either." He pointed at the skyline. "We build up. But we remember where the ground is." The following week brought a letter. An actual letter. Paper, envelope, postage stamp. Marcus didn't recognize the return address, but the handwriting was careful. Inside was a folded note and a photograph. The note read, "You won't remember me, but I was in the audience that day. I came for Elon. I left because of you. I was going to quit teaching. I felt like nothing I did mattered anymore, but something in what you said, how you stood there, how you listened, how you answered. It reminded me why I ever stood in front of a classroom at all. Today, my students are starting a project on social innovation. We watched your Q&A. We're calling the assignment, 'One Piece of Advice.' Thank you for reminding me. Ms. Ramirez, Lincoln High School, New Jersey." The photo was of her students. About 30 teenagers holding up signs that read, "I'm not invisible. I am potential. One step at a time." Marcus held the picture in his lap for a long time. Sometimes the ripple effect was invisible. Sometimes it sent back proof. By the end of the year, Marcus turned 18. He didn't want a party, but Ava insisted. It was a modest celebration. Friends. From the initiative, some old teachers, Darnell, Omar, and even Councilwoman Lynn, who showed up with a bakery cake and a sincere apology. His mother came too. She'd been volunteering weekly at the hub, serving meals, organizing books. She'd joined a recovery group. She was taking small steps, the kind Marcus could believe in. During the party, someone asked him what he'd wished for when he blew out the candles. He smiled but said nothing. The truth was, he hadn't made a wish. Because for the first time, he didn't need to. That winter, a journalist from The Atlantic published a long-form profile called "The Boy Who Asked for One Piece of Advice." It was eloquent, poetic, and starkly honest. It didn't portray Marcus as a miracle or a messiah. It showed him as a person, someone who'd struggled, doubted, failed, and still kept going. The final paragraph read, "He never asked for fame or fortune or even a second chance. He asked for guidance. And when he got it, he turned it into a bridge for others to cross." Maybe that's what real legacy looks like. Not building rockets, not amassing wealth, but lighting a torch and passing it back. Sometime in spring, Marcus visited Elon again. It was informal, quiet. Just 2 chairs on a rooftop garden of a shared tech space. No cameras, no stage, no crowd. "Didn't expect you to reach out," Elon said. Marcus shrugged. Felt like it was time. They sat for a while overlooking the city. "You know," Elon began, "most people who come to me want shortcuts. You didn't." "I didn't have time for shortcuts," Marcus said. "I had to survive." Elon nodded. "You gave that crowd something I never could. You gave them humility. You reminded us that brilliance doesn't come from comfort, it comes from necessity." A long pause. "Do you regret answering me the way you did?" Marcus asked. "No," Elon said. "But I do regret not asking you something in return." "What's that?" Elon turned to him. "What would you tell someone now, if they were where you were that day?" Marcus leaned back. Thought. Then, "You're not broken. You're not late. You're just early in your story. Keep writing it. 1 year passed, then 2. The Uplink initiative expanded across 8 cities. Marcus turned down offers for book deals, documentaries, reality shows. He didn't want to be branded. He wanted the work to speak for itself. He wrote op-eds instead. Quiet, powerful pieces in journals speaking about housing justice, youth empowerment, and digital equity. Sometimes he still woke up afraid. The body remembers before the mind can reason. But he had people now. Anchors. Places to land. He was accepted into Stanford, full scholarship, but deferred for a year to continue building the mentorship arm of Uplink. He still biked everywhere. Still hated kale. Still didn't like the word influencer. On the 3rd anniversary of the Q&A, they held a gathering, not a gala, not a spectacle, a community dinner. Everyone who'd been part of the journey showed up, some from other states. There were tables of shared food, old tech set up for recycling, new poetry hung on the walls, and an open mic where people spoke of what the initiative had meant to them. At the end of the night, Ava asked Marcus to close the evening. He stood, under the soft lights, the old mural behind him, and looked out over the faces, so many of them familiar, changed, and growing still. I used to think transformation looked like a single moment, he said. A lightning bolt, a speech, a sentence. He shook his head. But now I think it's slower. It's in the turning of a page, the act of staying, the small daily rebellions against despair. He scanned the room. You don't have to be a genius to change the world. You just have to believe the world can change. Applause followed, but not wild, just long, steady, real. That night, he walked Ava to her car. You ever miss the way things used to be? She asked. Marcus smiled. No, but I honor it. She looked at him. You've grown. I had no choice. I think that's why it worked. She opened her door, paused. You were the right person to ask that question. Not because of who you were, but because of who you were willing to become. He watched her drive off into the misting night, then walked the long way home. The city shimmered around him, not fixed, but healing. And maybe that was enough. Because sometimes the world doesn't need a hero. It needs a mirror, held up by someone brave enough to say, I'm still here, I'm still trying. And that's enough for today. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.